Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I am South Pole Tommy, Dr. Tom Crawford. And tonight I want to talk to you about what it is like to do science in one of the most remote and seemingly inhospitable places in the world, the South Pole. Now, what I would love to do is give you a detailed technical understanding of why it's important to go to the South Pole for the astronomy I want to do, and then give you a really deep understanding of the scientific goals of the instrument that I work on. But I got 15 minutes, and that ain't going to happen. So, how about we talk about that afterwards over beer? And for now, I just give you a sense of what it's like to live and work at the South Pole. So, just a couple of the questions that I get most often when I say that I work in Antarctica are, how do you get there? Do you take a boat? Do you have a special jet that takes you the whole way? How long does it take? And then just what's it like? What's it like living and working there? Do you live in a tent? Do you have to eat seal blubber? So the bulk of this talk is actually just going to be, how the hell do you get there? And what's it like down there? So the first step, oddly enough, to getting to the South Pole is to take a commercial flight to Christchurch, New Zealand. And you might ask, what the heck is that about? US, up here. Christchurch, New Zealand, over here. South Pole, down here. Why the heck are you doing? Oh, it's completely out of the way. But for historical reasons, the main American base at the South Pole is this here, McMurdo Station, and it's on the New Zealand side. And you have to stop at McMurdo before you get to the South Pole. So the first thing you do is you take a commercial flight to New Zealand. Actually, the first thing that you do is you go to your local airport and you sit in the bar with your significant other and you explain to him or her that you're not going to be seeing them for, 3 or 4 months. And you make sad face and have a beer. And then 2 or 3 or 4 commercial flights later, dozens of hours, you land in Christchurch, New Zealand, where you are stranded for at least a couple of days. You have to go to a couple of orientations. You have to get your extreme cold weather gear issued, which is very important. And then you have to wait for a flight to Antarctica. Those flights are run by the U.S. Air National Guard, particularly the base out of Schenectady, New York. I don't know why. But because of weather delays and flight crew availability, you might be waiting 3 or 4 days. So you might be stranded for like 5 days in Christchurch, and it's awesome. You can't work, the internet's terrible, so you just have to walk around and go to sidewalk cafes and play a little pinball and then drink beer and rinse and repeat for several days. It's great. They had an earthquake a few years ago. It's not quite the same. They're recovering. I'm rooting for them because it's a great city. Eventually, you do actually get to the matter at hand. You get told that, okay, time to come to the airport for a flight to McMurdo. And you muster in a little room at the airport that's special for the Antarctic people. You wear your extreme cold weather gear, even though it's 70 degrees out, because it's summer in New Zealand. And then you get ferried out to a military plane to take you to Antarctica. And if you are lucky, it's a jet. And you have like a 4 or 5 hour flight to McMurdo. If you are unlucky, which is about 90% of the time these days, you get on a propeller plane and it's like an 8 to 10 hour flight. And some amount of the time you get all the way to Antarctica and then all of a sudden the weather turns or the landing crew's having a party or something and you have to turn around and go back. And it's like a 16-hour flight and it's really not very comfortable because you're in a military airplane. This one's actually very nice compared to the propeller plane. Anyway, eventually you get to McMurdo. And McMurdo is a very scenic place. The town itself is kind of dingy, looks like either a military base or a mining town, but the scenery around it is really nice. There's an active volcano, there's a couple of mountain ranges, there is open water past the sea ice with wildlife. So you get to have a little bit more tourist time. Like you can go out to, this is Hut Point. This is where Scott's team had one of their huts. There's a cross for one of Scott's men that slipped and fell into the ocean here. I can't remember his name. I think of him as Mr. Klutzy. And then eventually you get the announcement that it's time to go on another military plane, finally to the South Pole. This one is always a propeller plane. You can't land a jet at the South Pole. But it's not a bad flight. It's like 3 or 4 hours. If you are lucky, you are near a window and you get some fantastic views of the Antarctic mid-continent. And then you arrive at the South Pole. The South Pole is not particularly scenic. It is flat white in every direction. It's a very high, very flat plateau. It's about 9,000 feet elevation. The pressure elevation, the effective pressure elevation is like 12,000 feet. It's extremely dry. It's the driest desert on Earth. So it's a bit, you have to get acclimated. And this is the South Pole Station where basically everybody lives. And then you have time for one last tourist moment. This is, you get to take a picture at the geographical South Pole where there's actually like a pole marker. This is right outside the station. You can see it from the galley. And then it is time to get to work. Now, this particular year that I'm documenting, for me, the work was helping to build the primary mirror for an instrument called the 10-meter South Pole Telescope. And 10 meters refers to the diameter of the primary mirror, 10 meters, 30 feet in diameter. So it's a huge thing. There's no building big enough at the South Pole to build it inside. So we had to build it outside. And the average temperature was about minus 40. And you would think that that would be basically impossible to do any real work in, but amazingly it's not. The cold weather gear they give you is really fantastic, and as long as you take regular breaks, like every hour or two in the warming hut, it's not so bad. It's what the hardest thing is. You have big mittens on, so it's hard to do fine motor work. If you do that, you have to take off and go down to small gloves, and then you do get really cold. And handling any kind of metal just sucks the heat right out of you. But if you're careful about it, you can do it. We had normal 10-hour days working outside, minus 40. It can be done. One interesting consequence of doing this is that it's very difficult to tell who's who in a picture, unless you remember the color of the Carhartt overalls you were wearing. I mean, is that me holding that guy wire? I have no idea. Unless you get close up enough that you can see your name tag, and then yes, that is in fact me. But otherwise, I would have no idea. Okay, so the dark thing you saw us putting together there was the backup structure for the primary mirror, and then on top of that, we had to put down the reflective mirror surface. And instead of having a single sheet of reflective material, we put it together with 200 different reflective panels. But for them to act like a single surface, they had to be aligned with respect to one another so that their shape fit this perfect parabola, and their edges were no more than about 20 microns apart, above or below each other, and that's the width of a human hair. So this took about 6 weeks. We adjusted, each one of these had 8 adjusters on the back of it, so that's about 1,600 adjusters. We adjusted them manually with our hands, and not quite randomly, but it took a very long time to actually get to the right surface. In the meantime, we had this crew of 9 fantastic ironworkers who were building the rest of the telescope. And you can imagine a 30-foot diameter mirror. The thing that holds it up would have to be huge, right? So it is. It's like a 6-story building. It's like 300 tons. And in November of this year, this is what it looked like. It was, a foundation, a wooden little room, and nothing else. And by January, we had to have a working telescope. And remarkably, these people did put it together in that amount of time. Let's see. Yep. Let's see if I can get this guy to play. Ooh. Oh, movie fail. Okay. I will get technical assistance.
This one was being weird earlier.
It's not that big of a deal. It's a time-lapse movie of the thing being built. We can just move on. Okay. Yeah, let's just move on. Okay, so, but the thing is, for this, to go from this to an actual telescope, we had to get this lovely mirror that we're putting together cranked up onto this huge piece of metal. And that was pretty much the scariest day of the entire year for us, where we took this beautiful 20-micron width of a human hair smooth surface and just cranked it up with 2 cranes and dumped it on top of another huge piece of metal. And it was actually an amazing feat of logistics to get this to happen. And it worked, and nothing was broken. And even the figure of the surface was only warped a tiny bit. We had to do a few adjustments after this happened, but it worked basically perfectly. I was very impressed. In the meantime, a lot of other people were working on an extremely important job of getting the camera, the thing that goes at the focus of the telescope and detects the light and turns it into signals that we can record in a computer, we're working very hard, and this is the camera itself. I would love to talk to you for an hour about this thing. It's a fascinating piece of equipment, but I can't. Suffice to say, it worked. We got science out of it. Everything was great. In the mean, and then, so for most of the rest of the talk, I'm going to talk about what just normal life was like. You know, we were working, whatever, 10, 12 hours a day, but we still had to go home and eat and sleep, go to the bathroom, all that thing. And people are very curious about what that's like at the pole. And actually this particular year we were down there, we managed to take a little bit of time out and make a movie about a guided tour of the South Pole Station. And that's what...
Hi, I'm Tom Crawford, and today we're going to give you a little tour of the new South Pole Station. Now, I say new South Pole Station because this structure is not even fully complete, and it was started a few years ago to replace the original South Pole Station, which is this geodesic dome structure you see here, and which was begun in 1957 as the first permanent settlement here at the geographic South Pole, which you can see is ceremonially marked with a striped pole surrounded by flags of signatories of the Antarctic Treaty.
Now, the station is primarily a shelter from the elements for the people who have to do work down here. So the first thing we're going to show you is where we sleep. And as you can see by the sign next to me, we have to be a little quiet here because people are sleeping at all hours. We work in 3 shifts down here at the pole: day shift, night shift, and swing shift. And so there's always someone sleeping. And in a minute, we're going to go in and take a real quiet look at the rooms. So this is my room. A little small, as you can see, but cozy, comfortable, a little messy, just like home. We're on our way now into probably the most important room in the new South Pole Station, the Galley. People say that food is probably the #1 component in morale, and the food at this place keeps our morale sky high. You see behind us some of the most important people at the South Pole Station, the chefs at the Galley. We're here now in the South Pole Station greenhouse, which provides occasional fresh vegetables for us to eat up at the Galley, but much more importantly provides a place for people to sit and commune with some living green things, which are a stark contrast to the barren white landscape outside. Now, if you could actually be here with me, you'd be amazed at how lush, green, and beautiful smelling this space is, which again is a great contrast to the fairly dead environment we're in most of the time. And of course, there's a full workout facility on station as well, which includes a full basketball court.
One of the truly great resources on site is the South Pole Station Activity Room. There's a dazzling array of high-quality musical equipment here that we can amuse ourselves with, and without disturbing the neighbors. We're not quite ready for prime time yet, but maybe by the end of the season.
And last but not least, we have the South Pole Station Sauna. So I'm here doing that age-old South Pole practice of having a schwitz. But you know, it's getting a little warm in here, and I think it may be time to go cool off and close up those pores a bit. So come on. Ah, now that's brisk. Well, I hope you enjoyed our South Pole Station tour today. Thanks a lot to Jeff McMahon for filming. Thanks to you for watching. I'm Tom Crawford, and see you next time.
All right, thanks. As I mentioned, there's this great activity room with fantastic, high-quality musical instruments, and we took really full advantage of that first year we were down there building the telescope. This is actually my boss, the PI of the instrument, the whole project, John Carlstrom, surprisingly, a very good jazz and rock guitarist. But the highlight of the activity room is an actual working theremin. And on Thanksgiving night of this year, we had an epic theremin noise jam that will go down in South Pole history. They also throw really great parties at the South Pole. This is New Year's Eve, the year we were down there. This is the gym that I was shooting baskets in. They've hung it with some nice bunting and made the lighting real nice. Had a couple of bands that night, one of which I was bassist in, one of the singers in. They do great formal dinners. Like the day-to-day food is very, very good at the pole. The special occasion food is out of the world. Then there are certain places out of the way where you can play foosball with your ironworker colleagues and drink multiple bottles of whiskey. And then you can have more clean outdoor pursuits, such as this -40 touch football game. Oh, right. We're actually there to do science. I forgot about it. Yeah. So as I said, the telescope and the camera performed great. We've been doing science with them for many years now. And I am now going to give you a rundown of science highlights from the telescope that are going to mean absolutely nothing to you with no context. But please ask me afterwards. So we found some interesting new galaxy clusters that were too distant to have been found before. We found them using the cosmic microwave background as a backlight. We found some gravitationally lensed, high redshift, dusty star-forming galaxies. And we made the most high-precision measurements of the anisotropy of the temperature of the cosmic microwave background. And now we're measuring the polarization of the cosmic microwave background, including the first ever measurement of the B-mode polarization of the cosmic microwave background. Like I said, afterwards, over beer, we'll get to that. So the conclusion of this whole thing is that going to the South Pole to do science is absolutely nuts, but totally worth it for the great science and lots of fun. Oh, but wait. I mentioned that there were, a couple of the things that I always get asked when I say I work in Antarctica, and I neglected one. Anybody know? Anybody think of what it might be? Yes, that's right, penguins. And indeed, one sees penguins. Never at the South Pole. There is no wildlife at the South Pole. The only living things there are some bacteria buried in the ice and the crazy humans that are there. But at McMurdo, on the coast by the sea, you do sometimes see penguins. And just to demonstrate that I did not just download pictures of penguins off the internet, that's me in front of the penguins. This was actually a very bad sign. This was 2 years ago. These penguins are too close. So this is a storage shed over here. It's very close to where there's a lot of human activity. They shouldn't be this close. They were driven this close because the sea ice that they normally hang out on had completely melted. So for 2 years in a row, it was 5 or 10 degrees warmer than it had been basically in recorded history at McMurdo. And all the sea ice melted, and the penguins had to come in. That was really disturbing. Last year, things were a lot better. The sea ice had set up again. The only penguin I saw was this guy, way the hell out on the sea ice. That was much better, but we'll have to. It remains to be seen whether that was a 2-year anomaly or a sign of things to come. So, on that sobering note, I will say I'm really done, and thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you so much, South Pole Tommy. So I share an office with this guy, and I didn't know any of that stuff. So let's have some questions. I can see one right here.
You haven't had a chance to go outside and look at the night sky, and what's the Milky Way look like?
Right. So the question is, do you get a chance to look at the night sky, and what does the Milky Way look like? And the answer is, thank God, no, I have never had that chance. Because if you are at the South Pole when it's dark, that means you're there for 10 or 11 months at a time and are not getting out. So I have only gone on the slightly crazy summer trips, never the truly crazy winter trips. But I've seen pictures, and the Milky Way is absolutely spectacular. The center of the galaxy is in the southern. Is only visible from the southern hemisphere, and you see just these amazing. It's spectacular. But I've never seen it live.
Okay, over here.
It is totally possible to the question is it possible to summarize what B-mode polarization in the cosmic microwave background is that I skipped over? And the answer is yes, in 2 or 3 hours. No more. Look, all light is a wave. There is a direction in which it waves up and down, and it can either wave this way or this way, and that's the polarization. whether it's this way or this way, then B mode is just a certain pattern of the relative on the sky of the direction of polarization versus the intensity of the polarized light. And this particular pattern, the B modes that we're looking for, are potentially a signature of violent happenings in the universe in the first 10 to the minus 30 something seconds of the universe.
Down here in front.
Yeah, so the question is, there's obviously you need a lot of fuel to run that station. How does that work? How does the fuel get there? And this is the very dirty secret of astronomy at the South Pole, and that's that everyone who has ever gone down there, they don't ever have to care about their carbon footprint ever again because they're basically taken up 1,000 people's carbon footprint already. Everything is run by burning jet fuel, and the jet fuel is carried in on jets. So it's this multi-level horribleness of wasting energy. So I'm very sorry about that. The science is great, though. I mean, really.
I don't think the penguins will take that excuse. Is this Dawn down here?
Okay. So the two questions were who uses this telescope, and then do I need a person to carry my equipment, namely like the person who asked the question. The second question is I think I got that covered. I'm sorry, but there's always jobs available. They need people to drive bulldozers and look at cargo, wash dishes. There's always jobs available. So. You just look on the internet, Antarctic jobs. It's easy. As for who uses the telescope, it's actually a single collaboration that that uses it 100% of the time. It was a single proposal to the National Science Foundation to build it, and it's for a single type of science. And so it really is. There are no open proposals for time on the telescope. It's a single user thing.
Hey, is that a question at the back, or are you holding on to the railing? No? Okay.
There's one
All right.
in the corner.
In the corner over there, yeah.
Right. The question was about communication with the outside world, and these days there is internet. So there are a couple of satellites which are nominally in geosynchronous orbit, so they're basically around the equator, but they have little blips in their orbit, so they pop up over the horizon at the South Pole for like a few hours a day, and so we just get catch as catch can, and it's not great. You can't stream videos or anything like that, but you can email your significant other pretty much 24 hours a day, which is the only important thing. Yes.
Up at the top.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Why the heck are we going to the pole for this? And there are two reasons. The real scientific reason is we're looking at the cosmic microwave background, which is this leftover radiation from near right after the Big Bang, and it peaks in the microwave region of the electromagnetic spectrum. And the biggest contaminant to observing in microwaves is water, because water interacts with microwaves. That's why you can heat water in your microwave oven. And so you want to go to where there is the least water in the air possible. And the South Pole is high and dry and cold. And the combination of that means that there is the lowest precipitable water vapor at the South Pole, lower than anywhere on Earth. However, there's a question, even if that were true, we may not have ever gotten to the South Pole to do this astronomy without a geopolitical reason to be there. And that is the South Pole is run by treaty, and to have a permanent footprint on the South Pole, you have to be doing active scientific research. So we would be there anyway, and so we might as well take advantage of it.
So I have a follow-up to that. Why is it better than space telescopes?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is not better than space telescopes. Okay. There is no water in the air in space because there is no air. However, to do it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to put a 10-meter telescope in space.
That's true.
So this, and the bigger the telescope you have, the smaller the feature on the sky you can resolve. So if you want to do small-scale microwave astronomy, it's almost all, you'll pretty much have to do it from the ground.
Cool. So your CMB map is better than Planck's, is what you're saying?
It is higher resolution than Planck's.
Okay.
And better.
Oh, I want to get a Planck person to come give a talk now. Down here.
What about the controversy you guys announced
Yes. Okay. The question is, what about this early announcement of B-mode polarization results? And thankfully, I can say, oh no, that wasn't us. Our B-mode polarization results are totally robust, and were not early, and they were not this 10 to the minus 30 seconds of the beginning of the universe signal. It was this other signal that causes B-modes, which it has to do with gravitational lensing of the CMB by intervening structure. There is a telescope on the other side of the building from us, so our next door neighbors, who did report a detection of the B-mode polarization that was thought to be from this period of inflation in the first 10 to the minus 30-something seconds of the universe, and that has since been retracted. I can go on for hours about this, but that is definitely, that is something that happened. But it wasn't us.
All right, we're going to have to call a halt there. But all of our speakers will be around having beers, I hope, if you want to ask them further questions. So I'd like to thank South Pole Tommy again.